am speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
In 1939, September the 3rd, war broke out. Second World War broke out. I remember listening to the radio and listening to Mr. Chamberlain. And then we didn't hear any more after that, of course, and carried on our normal school days and whatever. I was 11. My little brother was almost 5, but he wasn't at school yet. My sister Olive, yes, she's 6 years older than me. She was 17 when we left in June, that's right. And I had an older brother, 14. He'd just left school and had a job at the shop up the road with his tricycle delivering the groceries from the Fisher's grocery shop. And he loved it because he had a bicycle with the tray on the front. He used to drive around. Loved that. Yes, I was going to Bobat School. It was up a big hill by me. And Ray would know it. Up the Coat Hills, we had to go across Cambridge Park and all the way down to Bobat School. So this in June, the following June, it was beautiful weather, and on my way home from school, I always stopped at the Cambridge Park and played there till it was time to go home for tea, which was about 5 o'clock, I suppose. So I was swinging upside down on the monkey bars as I always did, and then I could hear most of the children had gone home. I heard some women crying, and that was so unusual. I got down off the monkey bars and went over, and there was 2 ladies with children round them, and I thought, what's up? What on earth could be wrong? And the one lady looked up and said to me, "You better go home, love, because you're going to England tomorrow." I was so excited. Wow, England. Going to be in England now that spring is here. And I was skipping down the road all the way home to tell Mum. I skated in the back door, pulled up short. There was Mum and Olive. Mum with tears running down her face. This day I went home, and then we faced the realisation that yes, we were going to England. John and I were going to England, my younger brother John, with the schools, and we had to be up 2 o'clock in the morning to walk up to get on the buses. Married women with young children went the day before we did, left Guernsey the day before, and enlistable men. They went straight over. And the next were all the schools to go. And then the next day was who else wanted to go and could get away. And I think it was the day afterwards that Germans were landing. It was as close as that. So because Mum was ironing dry the clothes we didn't have that many clothes. We were a large family and we didn't have, my dad hardly ever worked after the First World War because he was gassed 3 times. So we put on double of everything that we had, and when we got up in the dark, quite exciting that was too, getting up in the middle of the night and walking all the way up to Beaufort with Mum. So then it was a long, long wait at the school. We had, John and I, we were tied together with, well, you know, had to be hold hands and stay that way. Until we eventually got down to the harbour. It was daylight by then. And then we were 2 by 2 up the road, like a crocodile from the school. And we would walked all the way down to the bottom, the far end of the harbour. Whereas there was lots of queues of other children, all and each other output in the harbour, you know, so there was queues everywhere, schools, because all the schools of the island were evacuating. And we were right down the bottom, so we were told to stay in this, we were just with one lady, one teacher, and then we were told to stay there, not to move. So of course, those days you did what you were told, and you stayed where you were put. And poor John wanted to go to the loo. And in the end, I said, "Teacher will be back soon," but she was gone for hours. It seemed hours. It was a long time. Because they were all waiting for boats coming in. There was only all sorts of boats. Anybody's boats, you know, to get away. There wasn't like a big liner coming up and taking everybody all at once. So once the boats were in one by one, and they were taking all the schools away. And one of the men came and bought me a big 12-pound basket of tomatoes. I could hardly lift anyway, but we had that. And eventually somebody came and we started, and we got on, and it was a coal boat we had. They cleaned it up, obviously, but all the little ones, and I had to go with my brother as well to be with him down in the hold. John and I, the corner, buckets to be used if necessary. Anyway, eventually the boat went out, and it was another long, long journey, and it was horrible. And there was nowhere to sit. You had to sit on there was no seats or anything. You had to sit on the floor.
How were you feeling at this point?
Very sick.
Were you scared?
Yeah. Well, we're just so disappointed. We were just saying, hurry up and get it over with. And of course, the hold was open, but it was up at the other end, because it's a long way around this ship. I didn't realise. And I wanted some. Eventually, I thought I really feel I'm going to be ill any minute. And there were little ones being ill all around you, which doesn't help. Mm. And I thought, well, I'll just poke my head up and see if I can get some, because it was lovely and sunny, it seemed to be outside. I got halfway up, and I'd been, you know, and I must have slipped on some sick or something, and I knocked myself out. So next thing I know, I was back in the corner again. I'd been carried over. Yeah, I knocked myself out. So that made me, I had a headache as well as being sick. Anyway, I had a long, long journey. It was night time, one night time. By the time we got to Weymouth, and there was an air raid on, so we were all rushed through, looked like a theatre. We rushed straight through there. There was a doctor, he was supposed to be examining us, but he was just waving us through because of the air raid, straight onto a train. Well, we'd never seen a train before. That was, but it wasn't very exciting standing still anyway. But we were there for waiting, and when the train was full, it went off. And it just went and went and went. I think somebody said it took 17 hours. we ended up in Glasgow. Broad daylight by then, of course. And crowds of people, I remember crowds of people at the station and along waving and cheering as we thought we were film stars again. No, it was good to get somewhere at last. And then they took us all up in buses again, and we ended up it was a Sunday school, and it had rows and rows of camp beds laid out ready for us. And it was good. A long one, as we walked in the door, we must have been filthy, absolutely filthy. As you go in, there were long trestle tables, and there was bowls of porridge, steaming porridge there. And we were starving, but I couldn't eat it. It had salt in it, and I couldn't eat it. So just how starving we were. We had nothing. And anyway, then we said we could get undressed, and we must have had a wash. I don't remember that. But then the ladies, the little ones were all down the other end. So the ladies come up. Can you come and help us? Your brother won't let us take his vest off. And a poor love. And I went down there, and he wouldn't take it off for me either. He must have done it in the end, I suppose. We were there for a while, a few weeks, and eventually a lot of the children were going off. Parents were claiming them, and those that knew that their parents weren't coming, there were other people coming to look after them, take them, foster them. And then it was gradually getting less and less. And then finally we were told, oh, we had a letter from your mother. So she'd been all round doing depots, wherever the children had gone to. And the Glasgow was the last one. She'd found out where we were. So, and there was sixpence each in the envelope for us. Well, sixpence was a lot of money, silver sixpence. So I asked permission. I said, we knew there was a shop on the corner. I asked permission of the ladies if I could take John and we could go and get sweets. And they said yes. So, he had to go to the loo again. So we went to the toilet, and he dropped his sixpence down the loo.
Oh.
So I thought, I'm not putting my hand down there. So we went up and we had threepence each. And I thought, what can we have to last a long time? So I got 2 blocks of toffee. I must have lived on it for ages, you know. And another time when they said they could take us to the baths. So I thought, we're going to have a swim. We'd have a bath, you know. So they were, we'd been there a few weeks by then. And so we went in, and I had John and me, and I was running the bath and got him undressed and put him in the bath. I was just getting undressed myself, and they're banging on the door, and it echoes. And, you know, I thought, somebody's in trouble. There was a money saying, open this door. And I thought, somebody's in trouble. And I suddenly realised it was my door that was being banged on. So I opened it, and the teacher's, why did you lock the door? I said, come on out. I haven't been in yet, and John had just sat down in the water, you know. Too bad, she says. So poor, I had to get John out and dry him and finish getting dressed. I'd never even got in the water. That was so disappointing. I wanted a bath.
Yeah.
Of course, we hadn't had a bath at home. It was only like a tin bath. Mum used to get out at weekends for us. So this was a real bath, you know. So I never even had a bath. A teacher, there's about 12 of us that were going down to Brickhouse. So there was one teacher that took us down there to Yorkshire. So I had no idea of geography or anything. So didn't know about England, you know. We never had anything. So the Yorkshire, so we arrived at this train station in Yorkshire. So we walked down the hill, Crocodile, down to the town square. So I thought, well, this is Yorkshire. That big building must be Brickhouse.
Big house.
And Mum must live in there. And I wanted to watch, and this lady's skirt got in the way, and I moved it over and to look at the big house. And I looked up, and it was Mum, and I went, Mum! Oh, heaven. And Dad was behind there, and John and that, and his mum standing there with tears down her face again. It was lovely, lovely to see Mum again after all that time. And then we settled down into brick house in a little two down terrace between the canal and the river, which are always damp. But Mum had got hold of Dot, who ended up in Rochdale, I think it was. Dot with Keith, because Bert had stayed behind.
Okay, Dot was another sister.
And that's my eldest sister. Dot and Violet, my other sister Violet, both had little children, little boys. Raymond, he was a year-old, and Keith, who was 18 months, 2-year-old. And of course Violet was heavily pregnant with, again, when she left. And she was in labour on the boat going over. So when they finally got there was the ambulance waiting, and they took her off to hospital. But the baby wasn't born till 2 weeks later. And she died. When nobody knew where they were going to go. So originally they'd said, anybody with relations in England, get on and go to them. Well, my mum had a sister in Wales, Auntie Alice, and we were hoping to go there. But of course another mum, because Mum had 10 brothers and sisters, so Auntie Floss McLean, they had a very large family, and they had a little bit of money, which helped. They'd all gone to Auntie Alice, so there was no room for us to go there, so we had to go wherever they were taken. So Mum ended up in Brighouse, and she had Olive and Jim with her. My dad, who was working in Alderney, managed to get away from Alderney with the army. He was in the Navy then, and he got back to Guernsey just in time to get on the last boat out. So he ended up in Brighouse as well.
And did you go to school when you were there?
Yes, I went to school there. John and I went to some art in school. It was just across, not far to walk, and then up the hill. I remember I didn't like it at all. It was there wasn't many teachers, and what they were all old, and well, I wasn't learning anything. So all the teachers had been called up in the army, the forces, and a lot of retired people had come in to take over.
So did you go to school the whole time that you were there?
No. I left school when I was 13 because you were allowed to, and I wasn't learning anything. There was nothing to learn. As soon as I left school, I went into a factory, because there were all factories all around Brighouse, and this one was a fabrics factory. But I was only there 3 weeks. They put on the machine to make buttonholes in cami knickers.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the buttonholes. And it was fine. It was coming all big down. I quite liked it. But then Mum said no, it wasn't a job for me. I had quite a few jobs, and there was plenty of work for anybody, I did start working down along the canal. There's a factory there where they made cloche hooks. I was there for about a year, I suppose. And then I thought I wanted to change, so I went to Woolworths. They had a Woolworths there, so I was good at that. So they used to have to sell sales competitions, They'd say anybody that sells toothpaste or whatever it was, the most got a prize, a money prize at the end of the week. I won them every week. Ooh. Every week, because I was just I was only a little thing, and people took pity on me, I suppose. I'd say, oh, we're having a competition. Who sells the most gets a prize. I didn't say anything about what the toothpaste was good for or anything. I wouldn't have known anyway. But I used to win, and I got 7 and 6, That was a lot of money extra on my wages. And then in the end, they said I was selling so well I could go on the beauty counter. I couldn't see over the top of the counter. I couldn't see over the top of the counter. And the overall they gave me, it was right down to my ankles. And I thought, I don't know this, I don't know anything about makeup. I just about had soap on my face. I had no idea.
Did you have food rations?
Oh, everything was rationed, yes. And the sweeties were rationed as well, if you had the money to buy them. It's funny, when they first came out and said, you've got sweet coupons now, and there were so many coupons for a month, you know, about 2 ounces a week, let's say. But the lady next door used to sell, had the jars of sweets, and she had like a little mini shop there. And so I thought, oh, coupons, I can go and get some sweets. But I forgot you had to pay as well. My brain. I was still at school.
Yeah.
On the way to school one day, I had tuppence to spend, and that was a lot. And there was you couldn't buy anything, nothing in the shops on the way. But on the corner, there was this man that had boxes of vegetables and stuff. It wasn't really a shop, but as I passed, I said, can you give me something for tuppence? And he gave me this huge carrot. It was dirt and all, you know, on it. I brushed it all off. Huge carrot it was. It was beautiful. And I nibbled on that all day.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Why did you come back to Guernsey? What happened?
Why? We couldn't wait to get back to Guernsey, even if we'd done work. And there was, you know, because Jim, my brother, by then, when he first started over there, he went into a rag factory, and it was awful. Came back, you know, there was all sorts of fleas and that. And he couldn't wait to get into the army. And Olive had already gone into the army when she was 17. And she was in the spotters, you know, the anti-aircraft guns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had to have the spotters to identify the plane's friend or foe and tell them the range to fire. And she was doing that. She had wonderful eyesight, still did. And she was doing that down at Plymouth. And they had some terrible raids down there. Half the town was gone. And then Jim, as soon as he was old enough, 17, he couldn't wait to get into the army. But he had flat feet, so he had to go and be a driver. He was driving ambulances in the end. Daphne, my other sister, she was the second eldest one. She joined the Land Army. She, you know, with the caps. I loved the cowboy caps they used to wear. And so they were all gone practically. Dot was in the factory, ammunitions factories. So everybody was doing something, they had to. And good job, because Dad had just been diagnosed cancer when we got there. That's right. So he'd started off at the factory, but he couldn't work for long. Had to go for radiation treatment up to Leeds, I think it was somewhere like that. No, they were making a life, and a lot of evacuees, he's a bit older than me, met and married families there. A lot of them didn't want to come back. They had their families over there. But we couldn't wait. There was a fortnightly Channel Island club we used to all meet up with, because you'd send any messages from Guernsey. You've got to have messages rarely, you know. So whenever there was anything, Berta had got a letter once, and we took, Berta sent a letter to Dot once, and it said, Mrs. Chambers dying. And I thought, we don't know Mrs. Chambers. We worked out in the end that the Germans were called Jerrys, and the Jerry was a chamber. And said the Jerrys were leaving the island. So that was when we knew the end was coming. They were all being called back to fight in, you know, France and that. So then we started getting good messages back with notes. And you could only have one every 3 months or something like that, but just to know they were still alive.
So were you able to return as soon as the war ended?
Yes, they tried. They got, first of all, the women with children. They went back first, and whoever wanted to go back afterwards, we had to do a special boats laid on, you know. It was really organised. We just couldn't wait. It was the people up in Yorkshire did us proud. You know, we were well looked after, and you all pulled your weight, you got on with them, you know. But we just couldn't wait to get back to the beaches, and there, it was really good.
So did you come home to a house waiting for you?
Oh yes, our house was waiting for us. It was wide open, not a thing in it except for a mirror of the fireplace. That's the only thing left. So it wasn't our house, of course. It was the rented where we were. So we carried on living there. Mum had to. Dad was still going strong. He'd said all those years ago, when he first arrived there, it was 5 years, 5 long miserable years we were there. Happy years as well. You know, you made your own happiness, the family and that. But the war was over, so that was it. And so Dad's always said, "Oh, let's last till we get back home," and he did. He died 6 months after we got back home, and Mum was nursing him on her own all that time. And well, we all ended up back home, thank goodness. And we started another struggle then to orange boxes and earn some money to buy some furniture. It was all over start again, you know. When we came back, we found that 2 of my uncles had died. They'd both died on the same day. It was my uncle Walter, my dad's older brother, had died of cancer. It was the August before the liberation. And Uncle Dan, my Auntie Berth's husband, my dad's brother's husband, he died of malnutrition, starvation.
Did you recognise people when you got back?
Oh, yes. Well, the people that I'd known, you know, we still had relations, Auntie Elsie and Uncle Frank. They were there. They were all very thin because they'd had the last few months starvation, because once France fell, there was no food coming from the Germans through that. So it was a case of everybody getting back, and the island was absolutely bare. There was nothing. There was hardly a tree. They'd been using a fuel for fires, and there was bleak. There was nothing to plant, so no seeds, nothing getting back. It was a very bare, bleak island to get back to, and of course there was no work. There was a lot of things to be done, but there's no organisation of getting, you know, nobody had the money. So those are the people that had stayed here were the only people that had ground or that was to start again, you know. It was hard, so as soon as we were back, I couldn't get a job. I first got a job at Castle Carey. I was 16 by then, the Honourable Lord Digby. So I went in there was a room full of young girls with their mums, because you went up with your mum in those days for a job interview. Anyway, I got the job. I had no idea what Parliament did, and there was nobody else there, only Lord Digby and myself. And there was a lady that came in and cooked a meal at lunchtime, and for the thingy. But anyway, because people weren't back in the island yet, there was nothing going on, you know, no shops, nothing. I didn't know what to do. He showed me the dining room, and I had to keep that clean. That's fine. I just went round with a duster now and again, and said I still didn't have a lot to do. And it was November, and it was cold and dark at night, and I had the candles in the candlestick, and it was the winding stairs, stone stairs to get up to this great big castle. He was up one end in the great big room, and I was up at the other end in the freezing attic room, and we'd have to go up there at night. I was terrified. It was awful. I'd lay there shivering all night.
Oh.
Anyway, so I got the excuse then. When I'd finished the after meal in the evening, I'd say, just go down to my mum, because my mum only lived down the bottom of the road lane, and then I'd go back up, and I'd have to knock on the door for him to come. In the end, he says, I feel I'm the one who's doing the waiting. I think he keep going. And so I got the sack.
Oh dear.
I don't blame him, because every night I was going down home to Mum. What do you do down at your mother's? I said, we're getting ready for Christmas. We had nothing to get ready to Christmas. We had no money to get anything anyway.
Were there still rationings?
Everything was still rationed, yes. And
how long did that go on for?
That went on till the early 50s. That went on 1953, and that was clothes were rationed as well. But once the growing, a couple of years, you can get your potatoes again. They were grown potatoes and stuff. But at the start, it was a real tough, you know, if you had to have money, because you could get things if you had money. And of course we didn't have any money, so you couldn't get things till you'd done a job, and there was no work, so it was catch as catch can. So I said, right, as soon as I'm old enough, I'm going to join the army. So I was 17 and a half. Yeah, if you were 17 and a half, you could go down. So my friend and I, she was 3 days younger than me, and we went down there the day we were 17 and a half, and to join the army, and with the ATS, which we did.
Right.
And then we went off to England again. But it was different this time.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, really enjoyed it.
And things had started to progress and move back into the normality.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And by the time we were coming back on leave and that, you could see the island was changing, getting back to warmth and people, you know, able to know what was going on.